Ciao everyone, welcome to Beatspot. I'm Marco, and in this video I want to talk about a very nice trick to make your mix sound fuller right from the start. So generally we want our mix to sound big, and to sound big we need sounds to sound big. So let's make them a little bigger right from the start. And a very nice trick is by using saturation to enrich all our sounds by just a tiny bit. That really makes it easier to achieve a really fuller mix. So now let's see a mixing session where I used this technique, and there's only this trick, no panning, anything else, and you can really compare the mix with all the sound that are not saturated with the mix with the sound that are already saturated, and at first almost say that it just needs that to feel like they are fully mixed. So now I will open a mixing session which is unmixed, but we will compare the unmixed version with the unmixed version but with all the sounds saturated. This one is the dry one.
Dollars worth of nickels cost a dime. Humpty Dumpty didn't fall. Broken hearts didn't hurt at all. Time stood still and you were mine. Oh, 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 yeah.
So the key here is to saturate by just a little every single sound to make the whole mix feel richer, feel louder, but without stressing it much as we will do by just saturating the whole mix together. So for this technique you can use whatever saturator, it's up to you. In this tutorial I will talk about the NLS Channel stereo because I mean, it's nice and it's versatile. So let's solo the kick drum. So the difference is very subtle, but now let's just go to the snare, for example. You can really tell that here the difference is tangible, and it's really nice. It improves the overall sound without messing up with the levels. So what's good about NLS Channel stereo by Waves? It's that you have different options of drive, VCA group, and you also have the studio. So the studio is like the board, the mixing board, and each mixing board has a sound. So now let's listen to them. So the cool thing about having this studio switch is that you just aren't saturating, but you're also choosing the right tone you want for your sound. And the cool thing about it is that you can use whatever studio on whatever sound. You don't necessarily have to stick with mic for all the sounds in your mix. If the snare sounds good with mic, go with mic for the snare. If the vocal sounds good with spike, go with spike for the vocal. So this is a very nice layer of control over your mix that you have right from the start. So the trick with all these saturation thing is by turning up the drive and then controlling the output. Let's do it from the start. So we have 3 dBs of difference and a very huge amount of saturation. And in this case, I didn't want it to be so evident. So that's the reason why I used this utility to decrease the input gain. And then, so the original one, it's at 21, and then we have 26. So let's raise it by this amount. And now we have a fair comparison. So it's all about it. So now let's go to other sound and see how I managed to saturate them. The bass. So I went really light on the bass. Let's see the vocal.
Dollars worth of nickels cost a dime. Dollars worth of nickels cost a dime. Dollars worth of nickels cost a dime.
Really light on these two. And let's see the electric guitar. Let's see the piano. So louder, brighter, and also fuller in the low register. Let's see the strings. Now let's listen back to the difference.
Dollars worth of nickels cost a dime. Humpty Dumpty didn't fall. Broken hearts didn't hurt at all. Time stood still and you were mine. Oh, 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 yeah.
So let's quickly recap. Just take the NLS Channel stereo or any other saturator you want. You can choose the clipping mode, the color, the studio. Then you drive by how much you want to saturate your sound. So this is how much your sound will be colored by the plugin. Then you can also choose using or not the mic button. It adds a different sound, a really harsher sound, so it's up to you. And then you have the output to manage the gain stage, the whole thing. Then I added this utility tool has an input drive. So this is not the same as this drive. You can use it at the maximum to get the most color out of it, and you can just manage how much you want to drive the whole sound into the plugin with this gain knob, or any other tool that has a gain knob. You can also use an EQ with anything enabled and just use the output knob to manage it, whatever works. So the only thing you have to do is just controlling the volume before the saturator, so you can get it more saturated or less saturated. That's up to you. So the next time you're starting mixing a new track, I highly recommend you to use this trick and see how much you can enrich your mix without messing with the overall volume. And I have to admit that this almost feels like cheating, because it makes your mixing experience, your mixing session a lot more easier to deal with later. The most important thing about this technique is gain staging. So if you don't have a proper gain staging right at the start of your mixing chain, you will have some problem if you change your mind and want to disable this plugin and just go for another thing, because if you have other saturators, compressors, any other sort of dynamic stuff that works with threshold and ceilings, you will mess the gain and all your chain will react differently. Another thing I suggest doing with this technique is having a mono button on the master and make all these tweaks in mono, so you don't have the stereo image that might fool you with all the levels and the tonal balance. So just do it in mono, and if it sounds right in mono, it will sound even better in stereo. So this is it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any question, feel free to ask in the comment section below, and see you in the next one.